name is Ellie Tidman, and my presentation is on underwater grasses in the Chesapeake Bay. The issues with them comes when they have to be restored due to weather and populations that decrease the water's clarity. So this is a basic timeline of the formation and problem of underwater grasses. Approximately 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth was formed, and then 3,000 to 6,000 years ago, the Chesapeake Bay was formed. About 500 years ago, 95% of the bay was covered in vegetation, majorly with these underwater grasses. And then in 1972, there was a tropical storm named Agnes that flooded a lot of the bay and destroyed all of the vegetation. In 1984, solutions began to restore these, such as rebuilding the bay once the flooding was done and replanting them. And then in the 2000s, and more specifically 2010, there was extreme heat, which the grasses can't grow in, and they're still a declining population. Some background on underwater grasses: they are also known as submerged aquatic vegetation, or SAV, and they are a critical part of the bay's ecosystem. They provide food for waterfowl and macroinvertebrates and shelter for blue crabs and other small fish. They also, when they're in the ground, the roots, I don't remember the word. Bind the substrate, and then the leaves trap the sediments that are in the bay, meaning that they're only able to live in healthy water, but they also make the water more healthy as they're there. Just like plants on land, underwater grasses use photosynthesis, which is why sunlight and clear water is so important to them in order for them to grow and maintain their part of the ecosystem. There needs to be sunlight. So some of the factors that impact these underwater grasses are pollution, because it gets in the water and reduces the clarity. Underwater grasses also can't grow in high temperatures, and precipitation is another way that the water clarity is decreased, which doesn't allow for the needed amount of sunlight in order for these grasses to grow. So some of the major restoration measures are the Spa Creek Conservancy, which in hand with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation has been working to reduce population, manage the runoff from storms that leads into the bay. They've also had wetland protection, and they've made riparian buffers that all work to contribute to the bay grass revival. This is a graph of the progress of submerged aquatic vegetation abundance, and on the y-axis it shows the abundance in acres, and on the x-axis it shows the years from 1984 to 2015. And as you can see, since 1984, the abundance has increased, but there's also been a lot of heat, and the pollution is increasing in the water, so there hasn't been a major incline or decrease since 1984. This shows the same thing, and it's just a map of the Chesapeake Bay, and as you can see, there are a lot of beds along the east side, but not as many along the north side or the mouth of the Potomac, which is where the Chesapeake Bay Foundation has been working. Their goal is to have 185,000 acres, and they set a goal of 90,000 acres by 2017 and 130,000 acres by 2025, but the 2015 measure was 91,000 acres, so they have succeeded in the restoration and are continuing towards those 185,000 acres. So while there are advocacy groups that are working to increase our water clarity, we can do the same thing by lessening pollution, and then the bay grasses will come back, and yay.